All right, guys, time for another vocabulary study. For this week, we are going to be going over the root words for oud, sun, and phon, meaning sound or to hear. So let's get started. The first word is assonance. That's a noun. You have seen this word before. We talked about it when we talked about figurative language. It is the repetition of similar vowel sounds in the stressed syllables of successive words. So what that means is when we talked about alliterations, when we were talking about how they all have the same sound at the beginning and at least two words in the sentence going together, meaning successive, so they're right next to each other, have the same sound. So an alliteration would be Fred phones home for Fritos. That's an alliteration. But if it was vowel sounds rather than the constant sound of F, then it would be considered assonance. So assonance might be Ella eats eggs with elephants. Notice the E. We know E is a vowel, and we see that Ella eats eggs with elephants. A lot of those successive words going together have that stressed sound of that vowel. Next is audible. Audible is an adjective, so we know that it's describing something. If something is audible, it is able to be heard. I want you to take note that whenever we see I-B-L-E, that means able to. So we know odd meaning sound or being able to hear something, audible, able to be heard. Just letting you know that. When we see that suffix, I-B-L-E, it means able to. So able to be heard, something that's audible. Right now, I am audible. My voice is audible because you are able to hear it. You may describe a radio as audible, something maybe listening to music is audible. All of these things are audible. You can hear them. Audio is a noun. That is the noun of audible. Audio is the sound portion of a broadcast. So that's a thing. If you, again, are listening to the radio, maybe a podcast of some sort, the audio is the sound. It's just a fancier way of saying sound. An auditorium is a noun. An auditorium is a large room that accommodates an audience, often for meetings or performances. So you may have been to band concerts, you may have been to orchestra performances, you may have been to a place where they, like a theater of some sort. Those are all auditoriums. Cacophony is a noun. You may have seen this word before. I believe it was on another list. Cacophony are the harsh sounds, noisy or disturbing sounds. When I think of cacophony, I think of when I was in band. I was a drummer, but when the band would be warming up before my band teacher would come in, there would be a cacophony of all of these sounds. And it was like the flutes and the clarinets and the tubas and the trumpets and the trombone. Everybody that was playing an instrument was warming it up, trying to make sure that they were on key. And it was just this noisy, cluttered, disturbing mess. So yeah, that's why I never played the clarinet or anything. I couldn't do it. Or the flute. Oh, no, sorry. I'm sorry to those of you that play those instruments, but no, thank you. Drummers for life. Drummers for life. Moving on, phonograph is a noun. A phonograph, and we've seen this before as well, is a record player. It's a machine that reproduces sound. And we know that when we think about phonographs, it's a really old type of machine that plays these records. Your parents may not have a phonograph, but they may have a later version of the phonograph. That's a pretty old version of a record player, which is a phonograph. Your next word is resonate. So not resonate, resonate. Resonate is a verb, and it means to vibrate or repeat in sound or to correspond harmoniously. And those of you that like to sing, if you've ever been in a choir or maybe if you ever have sang in a choir in church, the sound resonates and it repeats or it vibrates. And when you are corresponding harmoniously, you're basically singing, and you want your voice to resonate. Sonar is a noun. Sonar is echolocation. Echolocation is a system using transmitted and reflected underwater sound waves to detect and locate submerged objects. Echolocation, we know that dolphins use echolocation. They are able to have sound waves make sound waves, and they can give their location to any other dolphins. Not only that, when we have people who go and do deep sea diving and they're trying to find, submerged objects, this cool treasure finders that find all that like amazing stuff underwater, they use echolocation. So they're not, at the bottom of the ocean talking about, hey, where is it? I can't find it. How do I find it? They use echolocation, and once they detect something, that's when they go and try to locate that submerged object. Sonnet is a noun, and this is actually appropriate because we are studying Shakespeare. A sonnet is a poem with 14 lines that usually sounds like one of several conventional rhyme schemes. So they rhyme. Shakespeare created, I believe, 153 or 54. I can never remember the number. I think it's 154 sonnets, and they compiled it into one book. And if like I said, when we read Shakespeare, it doesn't really make sense. But they do rhyme, and they have a very conventional rhyme scheme, the 14 lines. So if you are ever interested, maybe checking out one of the 154 Shakespearean sonnets, I encourage you to, just so that way you kind of get an idea of it. And you'll be probably studying Shakespearean sonnets maybe in high school. And the last word is unison. Unison is a noun. It's words or music produced by more than one person that sounds as if it is from one voice. So when we think of unison, looking at this prefix here, uni, we know that is one. And so one sound. And what that means is that we want to, if it's more than one person, and it needs to sound like it's coming just from one voice. We read in unison, like when we're in class and I say, okay, guys, we're going to do a choral read. Choral reads are done in unison, right? And if you don't do it in unison, what does Ms. Moore make you do? She makes you redo it. She makes you go over it again. And so that way we sound like one voice rather than 18 different voices. Okay? So that is your word list for this week. I think it's pretty simple. Some of these words we definitely have seen before. Other words we can relate to maybe have being in a place, like again, the auditorium, and we know what audio is, and we know what a phonograph is. So I'm hoping that this list is not too difficult for the vocabulary challenge. So for your vocabulary challenge, I am going to switch my tabs here. You are going to create a haiku. And you're probably wondering, what in the world is a haiku? Or maybe you're saying, oh, I've done haikus before. I love haikus. Or maybe you're not saying either one. But a haiku is a traditional Japanese poem with 3 lines that do not rhyme. They do not rhyme. But they do have a pattern of 5-7-5. So what that means is that the first line has 5 syllables, the second line has 7 syllables, and the last line of the haiku has 5 syllables as well. Haikus are traditional Japanese poems, and they could be dated back all the way to the 9th century. Do you know how long ago that was? A very long time ago. So here are some examples I created, and it really didn't take too much time to create them. I wanted to make sure that whatever my first line was, my other 2 lines preceding made sense. So just looking at these, I wanted to give you an example of of haikus. So my first one is titled Bedtime, because you are going to need a title. Oh, the starry night, such a sweet slumber for me, when the moon is bright. That's it. I want you to take note of the 5-7-5 for each line. It's not the words, it's the syllables. And the best way to do that is maybe to clap the syllables. So I could say, oh, the starry night, and I could count that. Oh, the starry night. If I were to count just the syllables, I get 5. Then the next one, such a sweet slumber for me. Okay, I'm breaking it down into syllables. That's 7. When the moon is bright. 5 syllables. The next one is sun-kissed fruit. The yellow lemon. Such tart, sweet, bitter goodness. sun-kissed, delicious. So again, to yourself, you can see the yellow lemon, such tart, sweet, bitter goodness, sun-kissed, delicious. 575. And the last one, feel free if you'd like to give your mother a haiku for Mother's Day. My mother you are, beautiful mother, greatness exceeds all others. Mom, my everything. And so that's my haiku. I'm going to give that to my mama for Mother's Day. But again, I want you to take notice again, it's not the amount of words, but it's the amount of syllables. So you will clap the syllables. Here are your requirements for the vocabulary challenge, haiku vocabulary challenge. You must create 3 different haikus. So I created 3, but your haikus must represent 3 different vocabulary words. So going back to your list, choose 3 words, create haikus for them. If you would like to use more, you can use more vocabulary words, but you still have to create 3 different haikus based off of the vocabulary words that were in the list, on the list. And then the next is that you must have a title for each haiku. I just want you to be creative. It doesn't have to be 575. It doesn't have to have a certain amount of syllables in the title. Just create a title for each one. And again, your haikus must be in the format of 575, no more, no less, but exact. Okay? So I hope that this is a challenge for you. I think it'll be great to read these. It'll be wonderful. You will submit them on a Google Doc, and you will have until next Tuesday to complete them. All right. If you do have any questions, pop on to for office hours, but that is your vocabulary list and challenge for this week. Good luck, and I hope it all works out for you.